Story structure is like sentence structure. Every single one has a beginning, middle, and end. Yet what separates the two is as simple as it is complex. Let me explain. In previous videos, we've gone over some relatively technical topics, including some techniques, editing tricks, and reviews. However, this video is planned to distinguish itself from the rest, allowing a little more nuance to the technicality. As I started with, stories always have a beginning, middle, and end. They also always contain some protagonist and an antagonist. However, I would like to make a point that a protagonist and antagonist do not mean the same thing as hero and villain. As I'm sure most of you are already aware, villain is a very subjective term. However, even a character with villainous traits can be a protagonist from a narrative perspective. You see, for those who don't already know, a protagonist is a character around which the story evolves and develops. They are usually the narrative focus and device for conveying the story itself. An antagonist is the main character, force, place, or thing that prevents the protagonist from reaching their desired goal, location, or aspiration. Famous examples of a true protagonist would include characters such as Perseus, Hercules, Beowulf, and in more modern times, Harry Potter. Whereas some famous examples of a true antagonist would include Dracula, Cthulhu, and Cinderella's stepmother. A story should almost always have someone or something to root for, the same way it should almost always have someone or something to be against. However, some examples of stories lacking this technically include Fight Club, shit, Tyler's gonna be pissed, Meet Joe Black, and Game of Thrones, which is supposed to be a little more nuanced, yes, but the Lannisters are definitely clear antagonists to the Starks. So if you have protagonists and antagonists, how do they interact with one another? This is the next major piece of story structure, the plot itself. Most stories feature an inciting action, event, or some sort of other narrative hook that pulls viewers in the introduction. Next is the act of building the narrative up to a sort of boiling point. Sometimes called rising actions, these events and interactions between characters set up the next part of the story, the climax. Rising actions are usually the cause to the climax's effect. Examples of rising action in use in popular films include Nemo adapting to the fish tank in Finding Nemo, the date scene in Pulp Fiction, and the egg scene in Fury. Oh hey, it's Brad Pitt again! Next is the climax, which is the story's tipping point. Secrets are revealed, people die, promises are broken. This is the most emotional part of your story, and also the part where your themes are supposed to be brought out and questioned. Some of my favorite climaxes in movies include the ones from Tombstone, Psycho, Reservoir Dogs, and Saving Private Ryan, which is a pretty good build-up to the emotional moments at the film's conclusion. Which leads me into my final point. What makes a good story? This is a loaded question, and one without a real answer. However, my personal opinion is that a story is about as good as it is creative. Now, by creative, I do not mean original, while some may disagree. Some of my favorite films and games happen to be sequels, which is pretty much the exact opposite of what people who claim originality means better quality said would happen. If you don't believe me, play Oblivion Remastered, Modern Warfare 2, God of War 4, GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Fight Night Round 3, Devil May Cry 5, or Assassin's Creed 4, and then get back to me on that. Because, in all honesty, originality is a little overrated. There is just so much that can be done with an existing idea if you just give it some love and time to grow under the right writers. Just because it's been done before doesn't mean it's been done your way. So, write your fan fiction. Aspire to make that adaptation you've always dreamed of. Plan it out and make detailed charts and timelines. Because, at the end of the day, we all love a good story, one with intrigue, romance, action, and adventure, with thrills and chills aplenty. And there's no question that this world needs a little more creativity. If you'd like some inspiration, advice, or assistance with making your idea come to life, consider watching the other videos we have on the channel as well. Also, consider becoming a subscriber if you're not one already, since up next we're going to be going over story themes and how they're sometimes even more enticing than the story itself.